Hi, welcome. This is Riza with Full Awakening, and I'm here to bring you episode 18 of Stories of Awakening, our monthly conversation series. And today we're here with Bridgette Parent Reid, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. We didn't even talk about it beforehand. I know her mostly as Bridgette Parent, but I'm supposing Reid is her married name. And she is a embodied mother and partner, an intuitive guide, and a community builder. She's the creatrix of Soul Hive, which is a grassroots organization where she lives in Texas. And that's soul-hive.com if you want to look up her work. So I'm so happy to be here with you in the middle of all of this madness that we are engaged in our world, this huge transformative moment, this walk through the fires that we're in. And this is being recorded in June of 2020. So we're just kind of coming out of the heaviest part of quarantine for COVID-19. We're in the middle of Black Lives Matters movements that are happening all over the world on behalf of us and our country and what our country is currently healing through or surfacing through. And there's so much going on. So we are here, and I am eager to hear more about Bridgette's story. I connected with Bridgette first through the Lee Tribe at our Portland event that we went to a couple years ago, and we just had an instant soul connection. And I don't know a lot about your story, so I'm really interested in diving deep. Bridgette, could you tell us where you are at right now, and also what awakening means to you?
Thank you, Riza. So good to be here today. So my name, as Riza said, is Bridgette Parent Reid. So I am originally from Southern Louisiana and have a Cajun French heritage. So most people that would see my name spelled Parent, it's parent. But officially, since you asked, the pronunciation is Parent.
Lovely, I love that.
So I'm here in Austin, Texas, and I'm in my home, as so many, still in somewhat of a self-isolation. Everyone's in differing degrees of that these days. A lot of confusion around that, but we are still mostly at home. So I'm coming to you from my bedroom. I have my kids and family safely locked away so I can have this precious time with you today. So you ask about what awakening means to me. What a all-encompassing term, right? Awakening. When I just drill down to what it means for me on a just simple level, it's simply being connected, really deeply connected. Riza just led us through a little meditation before we got started. And when you drop into sort of like not being in full connection with this body and being human and all the labels of I am this, that, or the other, and just feel the energy of yourself and that connection to all that is, nature, the Mother Earth, the spirits and energy all around us. Every single thing, that is what feels like awakening to me. And that happens on such different levels, right? We come in and we have this veil of amnesia when we come in as babies, or at least most little humans do. And then we go through whatever life experiences we go through. And then at some point we start making conscious choices to recognize that connection, to feel that oneness with everything. And as we do that, our eyes and hearts get opened and expanded in new ways continuously. And so when how I would have described awakening, or my experience of that 10 years ago, is very different from how it is today. Even though it's still the same thing, it's feeling that connection, but you start seeing deeper and deeper layers as you allow yourself to connect. So where I am today with that awakening is I mean, it's a beautiful place, but I don't kid myself to think that I am, fully awake and understand all there is. The more you awaken, the more you know that you don't know, or that the less you're sure of, the more that you are, fully connected. What I am sure of is that feeling of being connected, and that I can trust, that I know is truth. If there is a real thing is truth, it's that feeling. And that's something that is unchangeable, eternal, immortal, all those things. And so that, I guess that's my definition of awakening.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I keep thinking of this word embodied that you gave to your motherhood and your partnership, and how embodiment, our bodies are such a key to us experiencing awakening as humans,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. It's, I went through the Martha Beck life coach training about 10 years ago. And she talked about a tool for us to use called the body compass. And many people do this naturally, and have whatever term they use for that. Your gut feeling, do you feel that in your gut? Are you, when you're angry, you're like, let that steam go, or all these things, all these terms that we use that really are telling us that our bodies are this barometer to help us navigate life. The body doesn't lie. Whenever we can, a lot of times whenever I am in doubt about something, or just having a difficult time seeing clearly or making a decision, I'll use muscle testing. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but for those listening, it's really just a way of testing the strength of your body when you ask a certain question, or lean into a certain scenario or something. You can test the strength of your body, which is literally like a barometer or lie detector test. It can tell you what is true and what is best for you and what is not. And more and more is being revealed in research now about the mind, heart, and gut connection, and having 3 different brains, so to speak, in our body. And as we really start to trust that and trust our bodies in a way that we know, our thinking mind is pulling in all this experience and memory and logic and all these things, even right and left brain together, to give us this sort of complete picture. That is just information. Whereas our heart and our gut are giving us something on a very visceral level, something that can't be rationed away. And so that's why sometimes you're like, this makes no sense, but my heart is telling me this, or my gut is telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that is wisdom. That is what true wisdom is, when we can sort of combine all these parts of our brain within our body and trust that resounding wisdom. But it's in a way that you can't hear it unless you allow yourself to get still enough, allow yourself to release that ego that thinks it always knows best and knows the answer. And it doesn't take a lot to get to that space. We just did that little meditation and talked about that. If you just put in that really intentional effort to get still and to drop in. It doesn't have to be, like a Buddhist monk doing hours upon hours of deep meditation. That's great if you can do that, but you don't have to do that to be able to drop into your body's wisdom, your soul's wisdom that often comes through in body language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting. There's so many things flashing through, and part of me feels like, because of where we're at right now, globally and internally and communally, that it would be good to give people some of these tools right now. And so there's 2 things I'd like. One is, could you show us how you do muscle testing on yourself? And can you give us an
Mm-hmm.
example? And then the other thing is I think we should just do a little drop in for the
Okay,
audience so that the audience can experience that as well.
sure. So there are lots of ways to muscle test. If you have a partner with you, the one that I like to do that I feel is really, you know, our thinking mind can always play tricks on us when we do muscle testing. So whenever you're doing it with a partner, that element sometimes gets taken out of it because somebody else is pushing and providing resistance for you. When you're doing it for yourself, you have it's good to just notice that your thinking mind can play tricks on you. I'll just give you that caveat.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing it with a partner, what I'll do is ask them to lift their dominant arm, and I will put pressure on the arm to try to push it down, and I'll ask that person to resist me. And as they're resisting, I'll say something and ask them to repeat it so that as they're saying the word, so for example, I'll always start with a baseline. So I'll say, I love fresh air. And as they start saying, I love fresh air, I'll try to press their arm down. And what typically happens, because most people do love fresh air, their arm will be rock solid. Then the next thing I'll have them say is, I love to vomit, something that universally is, unpleasant for everyone. And as they start saying, I love to vomit, I'll press down, and typically they can't hold their arm up. It just drops down. So even though they want to resist me, they're mentally trying to resist me. If they are saying something that is untrue, that is not in alignment with their body, they physically get weaker. So that is one way to do it with a partner. For myself, there are two ways that I do it for myself. One is when I'm just standing straight up with my feet about shoulder width apart. I will get really straight, drop in, which we'll do a little exercise on that. Just have some intentional breaths, get to a space of neutral, and then I will say or think whatever I'm asking about. So it's the right decision to go on this family vacation during COVID. I don't know. These are the kinds of things that people are thinking about right now, trying to make these hard decisions, And so I will say it in a very clear, try to use as few words as possible. Don't mix up the sentiment of what you're saying. And typically I'll say it in the form of an affirmative statement so that basically my body can tell me true or false. And so when I do it standing, I'll say the statement. And first I'll do the baseline. I'll say, I love fresh air. See which way my body leans naturally. And so for me, if I lean forward, it's an affirmative, it's positive. If I lean backwards, it's a negative. And so if I say, I love fresh air, my body will naturally just start moving forward. It's sort of like a pendulum. If you've ever used a pendulum, that the baseline might be different for different people. So check the baseline first and then ask your real question and see what happens. The other thing, other than just standing there and letting my body either lean forward or lean back, is you can do this where you lock your fingers, your thumb and index finger, and you just try to resist. And you just try to pull it apart. So you try to pull the rings apart. And so I'll try to demonstrate it. I don't know how well you can see it there. So I'll say, let's see if you can see it better against me or the background, maybe here.
Yeah, I think we can see it.
So I'll
you
say,
basically have these two,
yes,
yeah, and then you interlock them, right?
yes. So it's a pattern there, so you can't really see it. But I'll say, I love fresh air, and it's really strong. I can't pull it apart. And now I'll say, I love to vomit, and it breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally your body either being strengthened by the truth from your body wisdom or being weakened from the untruth that your body wisdom is trying to share with you. So when you think about when you really think about that, like, wow, my body gets stronger when I am saying something that is true for me, in alignment
Mm-hmm.
with my body, then I am physically stronger. And when I am thinking or saying something that is not true for me, my body gets physically weaker. So you can see how this is a self-fulfilling prophecy whenever you have those, niggling thoughts that, we all have self-depreciating thoughts sometimes, but it's part of our culture. Oh, who are you to say that? Why did I think that? I'm such a bad person. I'm this or I'm that. Your body is physically getting weaker when you say these things to yourself or think these things. Same thing if you're having, negative thoughts or thoughts that are unhealthy in general, whether it's for yourself or someone else or simply untrue, then your body gets weaker. The
Mm-hmm.
real kicker with this, when you start talking about energy and being mindful of your energy and what strengthens you and what weakens you, is that we are affected by people around us, their thoughts, their energy. So I can be as neutral as can be. I can be happy-go-lucky, and I can be driving in my car surrounded by a ton of people that are stressed out, angry, frustrated, and I am picking up their energy constantly. So that energy is weakening me, even though I was in a good place before that. So that's why you can go into a business environment and just be drained at the end of the day. And you're like, gosh, I'm doing all these things I should be to, keep myself healthy and in a good mindset, but I just can't help it. I'm so drained after being in that environment, or I'm so drained after being with that toxic family member or whatever it may be. And you are literally drained. Your energy is literally being depleted in those areas. So it's a good segue to talk about grounding and centering, because you can set your own energy signature so that you are not impacted by other people's thoughts and behavior around you. And I'm careful to say not protect yourself, because that in itself sets an intention that you need to protect yourself, that you need protecting, and it creates a dissonance between you and what surrounds you. And so I'm really mindful to think of it in a way that I set my energy signature as something that's high vibrating, so that only something that is like that is, like magnets, either attracting or repelling. I set my energy signature so that the only thing I'm attracting is like energy. And that way I'm not taking on all the junk that's going around all around me all the time. So maybe this is a good time to do a little demonstration of grounding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I just want to comment on two things. I think one of the things that's interesting with the muscle testing is the effect that truth has on us. And so what occurred to me is that, for people in a position where they feel like they have to be untrue, or, that first agreement in the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word, which is basically tell the
Yes.
truth, right? And that actually strengthens us, strengthens our energy signature, strengthens our bodies to be able to speak the truth. And that when we have to lie or we have to be untrue in situations, we're actually weakening ourselves. And I think I've definitely experienced that in my life. And I think a lot of teenagers lie, or like kids lie a lot because they either exaggerating, they're fluffing up the truth, or because they're trying to hide what they're really doing or who they really are. And that there's a huge level of liberation when we get to the age where we can finally be like, you know what, I deserve to be true. I deserve to be able to speak the truth. And it takes a great amount of wisdom. You were talking about wisdom, and I think the wisdom, it takes bravery, right? It takes a lot of courage and bravery to get below our head, because our head, that mind is all about fear and is all about protecting ourselves, right?
Yes.
So it takes
And wanting to be right. Yes.
And wanting to be right. And so being able to sink down below that level and into the heart and into the gut and trust what you find there takes a lot of bravery. And I think that's sort of the baseline of wisdom. So
yes. And it's not negating the brain. It's encapsulating all of it. You know, it's having the wisdom that the brain, all the information, all of our experiences bring to the table, and marrying that with our wisdom in the body, so that you can have this, it's cohesive together. When we have that coherence, that is when we are our best selves. That is when we're our most healthy. That is when we're in the present moment, not living in the past or memories or worry or fear or stress. It's really being coherent in that moment, and that we cannot be stronger than when we do that. And that's super important right now, as so many people are concerned about their health, and this crazy pandemic that we're in, that's having people face their health and their mortality in ways maybe people haven't ever really, seriously looked at before. And knowing how much control we really do have over our own well-being, and not just by, although it's super important what we put into our bodies and the, activity level we have and all those things, but the mindset of being in coherence with our full selves, being in truth, being in integrity, being impeccable with our word. I love the 4 agreements. That is part of good health. That is the first part and the biggest part of good health, is being in that state of coherence. I mean, I could get into the science of it and how it actually, just in a quick nutshell, the fight or flight response. So many people live in that fight or flight response, that you're essentially telling your body, get ready to run, get ready to fight. And so all of your energy is going straight to your extremities, and your heart is like pumping blood like no other, because you're like getting ready to go. And so when we live in that constant state of stress, we are not dedicating the bulk of our energy to our organs and our body function, because we're saying, we don't have time for you right now. We got something to worry about. So when we can shift that message that we send our body, when we get to that space of coherence, of dropping in, connecting our mind and body and soul all together, knowing in our heart of hearts, in this moment, everything is fine. In this moment, I am fine. In this moment, I am eternal. I mean, it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. Then our body can relax and send that energy to all the places where our body naturally wants to function. Our bodies are designed to be great healers if we allow them to be. And so that's really one of the first steps in healing, is giving our body that grace and that neutrality. In this moment, I am fine. And getting out of that chaotic headspace to allow our bodies to do its natural work.
Yeah, hallelujah. Let's do a little of that.
Woo, woo.
Woo-hoo. Let's get some of that going. All right, well, yeah, let's do just a couple minutes just for our audience. If you guys could join us with closing your eyes. We're gonna ring the bell here. Just taking a deep breath. And I love this term that Bridgette's brought us, this coherence. We're going to reach towards coherence of bringing our energy down and connecting the mind with the heart, and our hearts with our bellies. We're going to use our breath to get there. Just take a few more deep breaths, nice and slow. And for me, coherence is also contained in the emotion of gratitude. So bringing some gratitude into your heart as you breathe. Grateful for this moment. Grateful for this air. For this gift of life. And bring your energy all the way down to your tailbone. in your pelvis, and opening yourself up to earth energy. Sending this cord of energy down from your body all the way through the planet and into the center of the earth. Allowing yourself to let go of any heaviness, anything you're carrying that is not yours or does not serve you. Allowing it to all flow down to the center of the planet, to be composted, and made into nourishment for new life. And as you release, you can also open yourself up to receiving that support, that love, that fresh energy from the earth, that nourishment. Breathing that into your body and up through your organs and your heart, up through your chest, up all the way through your throat and your neck and your head. And also opening up the top of your system and connecting with source energy. Sending up any stories you're ready to let go of, any thought patterns that don't serve you. And opening yourself also up to receiving fresh light, fresh insight, support, and love from the cosmos. Bringing that down to your heart. Really feeling that gratitude that you have for this gift of life, for this gift of this moment. The acknowledgement that you are here and you are held and seen and witnessed, and you are worthy of love, eternally worthy of love. Take one more deep breath. Allow your body to move. I always like to move my spine a little bit after I get myself into coherent state of gratitude and connection. And you can open your eyes gently and stretch, all that good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm curious for us to talk about motherhood a little bit. It sounds to me, you were saying before that you have, you say a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old?
That's right.
Okay. So it sounds like you did your training for being a life coach before you had kids.
I did. I was, for many years, 17, 18 years in the corporate world and, figuring out who I was and constantly searching. I've always been a seeker. And after many years of seeking and living a fun life, I was in the travel industry. So I got to travel the world and see lots of things, but I never felt fulfilled from within, not in the true sense of the word, not, back to the sense of awakening. I didn't feel deeply connected in the roles that I was, and sales and marketing and quotas and that whole world that just felt very untrue. And it was weakening my body. It was ultimately, I was holding so much stress all the time that you just don't realize, you have no idea that becomes your normal. And eventually, my husband and I, once we were married and wanted to start a family, that's when I, had the big kind of slap in the face about just how much that stress had taken a toll on my body, and had to go through some, pretty severe medical issues, and stuff that I had created in my body from storing so much stress. Anyway, I didn't find out about it until I was pregnant, and then facing a tough pregnancy that didn't come full term because of, so much medical stuff that I had going on. And it just caused me to take a real hard look at my life and what was not in alignment. But the unraveling process is so great because you're like I said, it just becomes your normal, that you don't realize how much stress you're carrying all the time when that's your day-to-day life. And so once I left that role and started, doing some real soul searching, and I found Martha Beck, and she's this brilliant light in the world, who was this like double Harvard professor who is like a recovering academic now. She's anyhow, she was just really unique in the way that she viewed the world, and the way that she came up with all of these tools out of necessity for herself, and how to navigate the world, and then just started sharing them, and people were so hungry for them that they were drawn to her. And I was one of those people. And so as I took her course, it was just under a year, and ended up meeting really like-minded, amazing souls that were just living their truth, I started healing, and I ended up being able to start my family, and successfully had 2 kids after that. But talking about peeling back the layers, there's just so much unlearning to do once you start seeking and realizing all the things that were so subtle and so gradual as they built up, everything from, your implicit bias of the family that you grew up in, to all those years of perfectionism and being the good girl, and doing what everybody else expected of you, until you're finally getting to that place like you talked about, Riza, where you're like, wait a minute, what am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? And look at the effects that it's having on me. And some people get to that place earlier than others, and some people never get to it. I think once you do get to a place where you're deeply seeking and wanting to change in a way that allows you to be in full alignment with who you are, then it's a lifelong process, a lives long process. So here we are. And so, so then once I became a life coach, it actually was, such a game changer in my life. It was so meaningful and so fulfilling. And at the same time, I became a mother, shortly thereafter, which changes everything. But I ended up meeting some really, really incredible people, mostly women, through the Martha Beck group, who were having these deep intuitive experiences. What I used to say, God, that's so crazy. I can't believe that, but I myself was having these wild intuitive experiences for many, many, many years. And I just didn't have anyone to talk to about them. And then all of a sudden I find this group of people who had very similar experiences and, you know, saw things when they closed their eyes and knew things and understood things. And it was just fascinating to me. And talk about opening up Pandora's box. That's what that did for me. So although the Martha Beck training to be a life coach was, you know, monumental, I feel like that was just a stepping stone to allow me to meet this group of people that were really resonant with me. And I was so hungry to learn from them. One of which, she went on to start the Intuitive Art Studio. Her name's Beverly Schaff Belling, a brilliant intuitive, also a master coach with the Martha Beck group. But she started this because we were all gravitating to her, wanting to understand more about this invisible world that we were a part of, but no one had ever talked to us about before and trained us or made us feel normal about it. And so I ended up being one of her first students, and for years trained with her, and got my certificate as an endorsed energy reader, you know, whatever that means. But it was, it's that group. I'm still a part of that group today. And they're always pushing the boundaries of, as soon as you get comfortable with something, we push a little further, And, you know, we had sort of, again, talked about this briefly when we first started our call, but this group had been feeling something building, something coming for a long time. I personally had been feeling this sense of urgency to get it together because something's coming. And we knew it was 2020. No one predicted COVID, at least no one in my circles predicted COVID, but we all felt this huge shift coming, this huge transition, you know, kind of breaking things down to the very foundation to be rebuilt. And then lo and behold, here we are now amidst this real transformational time that we are in. So interesting times indeed.
We are in interesting times. Yeah. It's interesting, your story as you were telling it, this sort of the building up, and then the building out, you know, the tearing down, this idea that it's this unraveling process, right? To kind of get back to what is essentially us, what is essentially truth. And as you were speaking, I kept hearing, this is the story of America, you know, this is the story of America, this sort of building up and this building out and tearing down, and where we are right now with getting to the root, getting to the base.
Wow, that gave me chills. That is where we are. That's the metaphor that you can pick up and put on most people individually right now, and as a country, as a nation, as a planet. It is what is happening. You know, this like pulling the blinders off, seeing the hard untruths, you know, seeing the things that you can't unsee. And once you do that, once you are like, wow, okay, so you might go through the levels of like guilt or shame or wishing that you had seen things earlier or you had done things differently before. And then you have to eventually let all that go and work through that to know, okay, here, it's brought me to here. And everybody, whatever journey you're on, it's exactly where you're meant to be. You know, we plan out some version of what life lessons we want to be able to learn in each lifetime, if you believe, as I do, that, you know, we come back, you know, over and over in different ways. And you know, for people that are here now, we absolutely chose to be here now during this time, doing our work in one way or another for our own personal soul's journey, but also for the collective. We are all connected. It sounds so cliche, but back to when we ground and center and get to coherence, we can truly feel that. that our
Mhm.
energy is all connected. We are this giant ocean, and we're just, the drops of water that are moving around together. Yes, I'm an individual drop, but I'm moving within this vast ocean that we've chosen to be a part of. And one cannot, not impact the other. And I think that is essentially what is happening. This transformation that we're going through right now is that it's hard to deny how one drop doesn't affect the other. And it's, more and more, I think people are not just seeing with their eyes, but feeling with their hearts how we are all connected, not just people, but animals and the plants and the rocks and just every part of this existence. Everything is energy, everything vibrating at different frequencies. And gosh, a whole tangent that we wouldn't have time to go to today, but the Schumann resonance, I'm sure you're probably familiar with. The Schumann resonance is just a measurement of the Earth's pulse. It's the heartbeat of the Earth. And it has been changing so rapidly in the past, years specifically, but the years building up to this as well. Our pulse of the Earth has just increased dramatically. So how can that happen? Scientifically, looking at the frequency of our Earth and our planet just skyrocketing as far as the intensity of the energy and not affecting us. I mean, if you follow that sort of thing, you're like, well, of course, we're this power cooker, pressure cooker right now. It's all coming to a head. We're vibrating so quickly. And so we're right in the midst of that. And it's uncomfortable and crazy and lots of stuff to handle and to deal with, and all the layers that are we can look at, and however you choose, we can look at them as a gift that we're able to see these things and have an opportunity to shift where we're out of alignment. Or, some people can still choose to see themselves as a victim of their circumstances. And, like I said, everyone's on their own unique journey and they're exactly where they're meant to be. However, once you get in your little dinghy and you're going, in the downriver, you'll realize it's a whole lot easier to go with the flow than it is to paddle upstream. And the more that we can stay in flow, knowing we're all part of this, connected, moving collective, then, the better off we are, the more we're able to handle the storms that are going on up top, if we can really anchor into that center point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, there's so many different lines of information coming in all at once. I'm gonna pluck a few of those strings. Let's see. Well, one is choice. That's a big one. How you choose, what you choose. When you were talking earlier about the perspective that we all choose to be here and we choose to be in the position that we're in and the lifetimes that we have and the reincarnation, the added on benefit, I think that there's a lot of people that would say, well, how do you know that? How do you know that you chose to be here and you chose to, like, I didn't choose my family. How do you know that, right? And I always say it doesn't matter if we know or don't know something. We get to choose perspectives if they benefit our level of empowerment. So again, to that, like, muscle testing, does it make you stronger or does it make you weaker, right? And if a perspective makes you stronger, then it's worth adopting. And if it makes you weaker, it's worth examining and releasing if possible. So that's one thing that I'll bring up, is choice. And of course, right now we all have a choice of how to perceive the situation that we're currently in. We could perceive it as a healing crisis that's been coming for a long time. And that stress, right? That vibration, that stress, that cortisol has been boiling us like a bunch of frogs, right? In a gradually warming pot for a while. And now all of a sudden we're like, holy crap, this is all happening right now. This is happening right now. And it's terrible, and, or whatever it is, or it's wonderful and it's exploding and it's refreshing and we can see it. We can finally see it. We can see all the component parts, and that's wonderful. So always, always we have a choice of how to perceive and how to proceed with our action and with our work. The other piece that I was going to bring up, let's see if it comes back, kind of zoomed away. Zoomed away. Are you going to come back? Choice. You know, one of the things I was thinking about was perspective. So this idea, you know, as life coaches or of intuitive guides, we have this power of being able to see someone with a little bit of perspective, a little bit of distance, and being able to see more clearly than they can sometimes see themselves, what they're going through, what they're suffering from, what they're experiencing, and how we might be able to help by just unwrapping something or revealing something or reflecting something back. You know, that's the purpose of a therapist or a life coach or an intuitive guide, right? In some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're getting this gift right now. We've just had this huge experience with COVID. That's our first truly global unified experience, right? And I've been, you know, in that, like, it's coming intuition. I've been feeling that also for quite a while. And I was like, you know, it's going to take like an alien invasion or something for us to be like, oh, we're all humans. We're all having some semblance of the same experience, some semblance of awakening to like humanity, the humanity and the unified global nature of our human race, right? But I think that it's actually been this illness that's given us this understanding that these lines that are drawn in the sand between countries and between governments and between states, that these are meaningless in some ways, that we're all humans, we're all vulnerable to the same diseases, and our systems are revealing themselves for their inherent weaknesses. These systems of control that we have all over the world that we agree to and we agree to and we agree to and we participate in, you know, because we're all so busy and we're all vibrating at these different phonetic levels. We just keep agreeing to these systems of control because they're convenient and everyone else is, and it's what's happening, right? Now, all of a sudden, we all have a little bit of distance from that. And we can be like, whoa, what was I agreeing to? And is this really what I want for my world and for my family and for my life, you know? And I think COVID's been interesting in that we've been self-isolated. So the scenario, the baseline inside our bodies and inside our families and our partnerships are becoming more clear because they're not mixed up with the collective as much, right? And so we're getting to see our own foundational cracks internally, inside ourselves, in our relationships, right, in our homes. And then when we take our own vibration out into the public now, it's much clearer who we vibrate with and who we don't,
Yes.
who we harmonize with and who we don't. Right? And that whole like driving down the freeway and being surrounded by people in a different vibrational state and being like, oh, you know, like this sort of self organizing energetic factor is very interesting. So that's one thing I was thinking of as you were speaking. And then the last thing I'll say is that I feel so grateful for the people that are having protests all over the world right now in support of what's happening here as far as the racial healing that needs to happen, because they are seeing us from a different perspective. They are seeing us from a greater distance than we can see ourselves. So that's beautiful. So the last thing I was going to say about that is that, I was really interested in this image that you brought of your light signature, of being able to set your light signature, especially as we venture back out into more and more public situations, as, you know, the quarantine starts to loosen its hold a little bit more publicly and people are taking that in different ways. And we're becoming aware that, you know, the way that you vibrate and the way that other people vibrates affects each other, right? That we have individual light signatures and we're in this ocean of energy all together. So I was seeing this sort of, you know, these different colors. So say your color was blue and you're vibrating at a blue level and you want to be attracting other people vibrating at that blue level, right? And for me, that energy is like the energy of calm or the energy of love or gratitude. How do you do that presetting process for yourself? Is it simply a grounding, connecting process? And also, how do you do that with your children and your family so that all of you are in that sort of like bubble of coherency when you enter into public scenarios?
What a good question. I couldn't agree more that this is a very clarifying time, because we have this opportunity to be in our bubble, our quarantine bubble, and get more clear on where we are, where we want, and making choices about where we want to vibrate, how we want to be, how, not do, but how we want to be, that it makes things much more clear when you go out into the external circumstances with different people and different situations. And I know one way that's come up for me is in the invitations I've received, doing this kind of work. I think a lot of people have come to say, oh, can you be a part of this? Can you be a part of this? Can you be a part of this? And my no's have far outweighed my yeses in this last few months. And, there's no positive or negative charge to that. It just is what it is. It's just been very clear to me. This is where I want to put my energy right now. This doesn't feel like the best use of my energy right now. So those kinds of clarifying moments have been, it's just been much more clear, I would say, because I didn't have the distraction and all the layered nuances of other energy around me to confuse me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I've certainly noticed. And for me personally, I do have 2 small kids, so I'm not just able to go and sit and meditate and, be with nature as much as I would love to do that. I will say that I've spent more time gardening and out in my yard because being with nature naturally grounds you. It connects you to source energy. It's very hard to be out in nature with your hands in the dirt or touching, living plant life or stones or soil or different things without being in the present moment and without feeling just really in coherence. That it brings you to coherence, being in nature. So that's one way. But then also, I just, it takes time to develop a grounding practice that feels really natural to you. And it's also something that develops and evolves. My grounding and centering practice, where it started, it looks very different today. And when people first used to talk to me about, oh, you really need to ground, especially when I was seeing all these crazy things and like having all these experiences, people were like, oh, you really need to ground. You really need to ground. I was like, what does that even mean? And then now, gosh, I know the importance of grounding. I know the importance of creating my energy signature so that I am not taking on all of the energy around me unless it is a matching or higher energy that uplifts me. And so what I do, a version of that grounding and centering that you just led us through, when I'm like need to do it really quickly, I'll just imagine myself kind of sitting, I mean, this is my personal way, but just sitting kind of cross-legged, just really peaceful and just being surrounded by light. And the important thing, it's not your visual, it's not that you visualize this perfect Zen picture or whatever. The most important thing is how you feel when you do this drop in. How does your body feel? How calm do you feel? Do you feel at peace? Or are you letting your mind think about all the other things, your to-do list, oh, I'm worried about this, that, or the other. So the only thing that matters is that you allow yourself the space to just feel at peace, connected, and like you said, full of gratitude for the moment. There's always something that you can be grateful for. Just breathing, having air to breathe. That's, if there's nothing else, be thankful for the air to breathe. And when you do that, it brings you to that state of coherence. It grounds you. It centers you just in a moment. And now, of course, it's also wonderful if you do have more time to sit and really play with what it feels like to ground, growing roots from your feet down into the earth, feeling it wrap around the different crystals and minerals of the earth, core, getting to the center where you can just release everything and let it all go and be transmuted into its highest form. And then bringing that energy, just feeling it tingle through your body as it like lights up every chakra, and, let your heart just expand as you connect, from just opening the top of your head and connecting with source energy, your guides and angels, and or just, your highest self. Your highest self, I often ask, to go back to that word embodiment, I often, when I ground and center, I thank my highest soul self for coming into my body. It doesn't have to be in our body. Oftentimes it's not in our body. There's, again, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So I don't pretend to understand what all is happening there, but I know that my energy is much more vast than just this physical human body. And so I do, ground and welcome my highest self to embody my flesh, to ground me in this human experience. And so another thing I do when I'm in the shower, I just imagine letting that water just drip onto me like it is just full of light, full of positive energy. I thank all of the cells in my body for waking up, for responding with love and gratitude. I thank them for their health and well-being, because every little cell in our body has its own energy center. And so I just let that water be a metaphor for me in the shower to just kind of light up my body, light up this flesh, connect me to this human experience. And then at the same time, let everything wash away that's no longer serving me. So in a nutshell, to answer your question, the three main ways that I ground and center and remind myself to do that daily is, if I happen to take a shower that day, which is not always a daily process right now, but in the shower, I always do a version of that. In the garden, just getting my hands dirty, having my bare feet in the grass, that is a very just surefire way to connect and ground. There's even a whole movement called earthing, which is just walking around bare feet, getting the minerals from the earth and connecting. And then it's just that, just wherever you are, anytime, any place, just having that quick drop in, feeling yourself at peace, just have that intentional breath, even if it's just, a few intentional breaths, feeling your shoulders relax and knowing in this moment, everything is absolutely fine, and feeling that gratitude and love. And that's it. That shifts you into that energy signature that you want to put out there. And it also helps you, when you are in alignment in that way, it's so much easier to go about your day, because just like we were talking about, being in this like quarantine bubble gives us more clarity. When you are grounded and centered and in alignment, you have so much more clarity. It's like the hot and cold game. You either gravitate to what's in alignment with you, or you are kind of repelled from what's not in alignment with you. And for some people that are just really starting to go through this awakening process, it can be lonely. You can feel very isolated when you're like, wait, that really doesn't feel good to me. I'm not in alignment with that. And sometimes you have to cut friendships or distance yourself in different ways from, your environment or even your own family members. Once you start having that level of awareness, like, wow, how did I not really see that before, how that energy affects me? And so I would just encourage you, if you're in that place, to practice grounding and centering as much as you can, getting to that place of everything is just fine, and trusting that you are this magnet putting out this energy field that will attract that same energy back to you. It might take a while as you're cleaning out and as you're shifting, what is around you, but you cannot continue to vibrate at that higher frequency without attracting the like back to you. So be patient with it, be gentle with yourselves, and eventually you'll notice that different people start coming into your lives that light you up, that you feel just completely energized when you're around. Like when Riza and I met each other and we were like, yes, 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 tell me more, say more. And we all know that feeling. We all know what it feels like to be in the presence of someone when we lose track of time, when we can't get enough, and or when we're doing something similar. Oh, God, I just love this. I love doing gardening and stuff, like I mentioned, and I can get lost in a project. And my husband's like, are you ever coming in? And I'm like, oh, I totally lost track of time because I am so present in that space. And my energy feels so good that I'm not worried or thinking about anything else. So right now, that's something that we're all getting the opportunity to do. So have fun with it and play with it, and know there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's very, very personal to each of us, but it's always available to us.
Yay. What a beautiful, beautiful description of practice. Thank you so much. I think that everyone can use that right now. And I love that. I think mamas always have the best information about how to do it simply and quickly, because sometimes we only have a couple minutes or a couple breaths to get us back to that place. But I think that part of the goal is to live in that meditative space. We may not have time to be in retreat or in a monastery or in a silent situation. We have the chaos of life happening around us, but that doesn't mean that we can't keep returning to our bodies and returning to our hearts and returning to that sense of connection and that sense of groundedness.
Yes. And that reminds me, you asked, how do I help my kids embody that energy signature? And I'm so glad that you asked that, because that has been something that I've been much more mindful of now that we're in this contained space and have the time. And what I do with my kids, and obviously it's age appropriate, 5 and 7-year-olds, we do morning meditations sometimes, not every morning, but when we can, I just have them, get still, close their eyes. We start with a few deep breaths, and then I say, okay, what color feels really delicious to you right now? Like, what color, if you could just paint all around you in your big bubble, what color would that be? Oh, mine would be yellow. Oh, mine's rainbow and sparkly, whatever they say, and say, oh, doesn't that feel so good? Just imagine it's all around you in this big bubble. And now imagine that you take that bubble wherever you go with you. And if you start feeling sad and your bubble starts getting, a different color that doesn't feel good, you can just splash that color all around you anytime, and it feels great again. And they can connect with that. They can understand that, and they're like, oh, I'm making my bubble this, and my rainbow is going to go everywhere. And I'm like, yes, you can send that. So what we do is we send energy balls to people. So we think of different people and say, oh, yeah, that's my mom, their grandmother. We say, you know what? I bet Yaya would love to receive an energy ball right now. What color do we want to send her? And they'll say, oh, I bet she'll want, a rainbow ball, or she likes green. Let's send her a green ball. And especially if she's sick, or if, there's something going on. And instead of me saying, let's, there's so many different ways you can do that with your kids to help them send their prayers and love and well wishes. But for me, this is a way to teach them about energy, and that it truly can be felt and received and have a positive impact. And so we do that all the time. We've been doing that for many, many years. We talk about, sending energy balls. And we talk about when we get in the car, and if we're going on a road trip, to put an energy ball around our vehicle, so that, it's a positive, happy experience, and we're grateful for everything that it provides for us. We do that around food. We do that, within our family, but also we send it out to people in the world and the planet, whatever comes to us that day, whatever we're thinking about. We've been having a lot of uncomfortable discussions around race in America. My kids' best friends and our neighbors are African American, and as much as we like to think they're colorblind, and just so beautiful, I mean, they have so much to teach us, and not having any hangups about anything. They're like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. And I love that. And at the same time, trying to navigate, but how do we teach them to make sure they're advocates, and anyway, so we're all in that messy place right now trying to figure that out. But one thing we can always come back to is, how do you feel? How does this make you feel? How does it make you feel when you see this happening to people of color? And what can you do? How about we send send your positive energy that way for healing? And, so I would say what I'm doing personally is always a work in progress. I'm just figuring it out day to day as I go. What feels right in this moment? What are they responding to? If I feel the energy getting icky and thick and testy around here, I'm like, okay, we need to do some shifting. And you always can. You always can. And it's really simple if you just do it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's such great advice, just to remind people that they always have the power to change things. They always have the power to try new things or let other things go. And I think the biggest thing for parenting, especially for us mothers, but I think as parents in general, that mama shame can come in so hard and so heavy. And especially in these times when we're like on top of each other, and our energetic cleanliness and coherency is so much more important than ever, that sometimes things don't feel great. We're like, today did not feel great for this and this reason. Tomorrow, let's try something different. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Kids are really adaptable, and we're really adaptable too. We don't have to just say, well, I give up. And I just give up because it's shitty and I'm a shitty parent and it's just going to be shitty. You can say, okay, that wasn't great. I didn't react great. You guys didn't react great. Let's try something different tomorrow. Let's try getting out on a walk first thing in the morning, or let's try this. Just experiment, and be okay with those experiments not going well, and adopt things. Like if you hear this energy ball thing, I love that. Let's try that. We're going to try that today. We're going to try visualizing our energy ball, or, this practice sounds interesting to me. I'm going to try that too. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, but we're going to experiment with it. And to give that power to ourselves individually, but also to us as families, I think is really, really important right now.
I think that, like what you just said is, if I could give the best advice to myself that I constantly have to remind myself that I think will apply to anyone, it is to continue to be curious and playful. And always in gratitude, but curious and playful, it takes the pressure off. It takes that shame piece off. Like, it's okay to not do it right. There is no such thing as right. You just, hey, let's try this. That energy ball thing sounds good. It might be a disaster for my kids. Who knows? But we'll try it and play with it. Same thing with food, trying to give kids different foods. Be curious, be playful. Everything is in the energy behind what we're doing. And so if it feels forced, if it feels hard, if it feels frustrating, it's not going to be something that we adopt. It's just not. And so if we can shift whatever's going on, because we also know that we're here to experience the whole wide spectrum of emotions. That's part of it. There's no shame in being frustrated or mad or sad or any of those things. Like, yeah, that's all part of it. Acknowledge it, feel it. And if we're ready to shift it, let's shift it. And how can we do it? I don't know. Let's play with it, So as a mom, it's certainly, gosh, the hardest, most humbling and most rewarding, exciting, amazing experience of my life. But more and more, the best way I find to navigate it is just take the pressure off, especially with homeschooling. Oh my goodness, with the COVID and like being at home, and so many people putting that pressure to like be a great homeschooler. Well, most people don't know anything about homeschooling. And so like just trying to take that pressure off and figure out what works for my family, what works for me. How can we do this on a sustainable level? And again, everything is a metaphor for everything else. How we do anything is how we do everything. So it's constantly asking that. How can I be curious? How can I get playful here? If I don't like this energy, how can I shift it? And it's always a choice. Always.
Yeah, back to that magical power of choice. Absolutely. And I think that's a great point to leave us on, is that we always have a choice to remain playful, and every moment is a new moment. Right? I think that every moment we're given a new chance to awaken, a new chance to come into coherency, a new chance to be connected, a new chance to feel that love. in ourselves and feel that impeccability, that grace inside of ourselves. It's always accessible. And each moment we get another chance and another chance and another chance.
Yeah.
So may we all be held in that intention, and maybe hold each other in that intention. Bridgette, it was so lovely to meet with you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day and away from your family to come sit with me and to dig deep down into this awakening experience that we're all going through. I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you, and thank you for modeling, how to do that. You have your family, and you are going through your experiences and still carrying that into your work. And I think one point that we've danced around but is coming to the head now is that we are not compartmentalized beings. We can't be this way in our work, this way at home, this way with our families. It has to all be married together. Like you said, bring that meditation into a living meditation, always just embodying who we are and bringing all those aspects together. That is part of coherence, right? It's not separating these pieces of ourselves, whether it's like, people doing toxic, draining work and then trying to come home and live a well-rounded, satisfying life. Like, the two just don't go together. You can't be one thing here and one thing here and expect, different results. So it's really about us figuring out how to blend all these roles that we have as humans and making them all fit, finding a way to make them all fit together that works very uniquely for us. And it might be totally different, to what anybody else is experiencing. But when we do that, wow, everything shifts. And it's like, oh, all the puzzle pieces are in place now. We can, move freely without worried about, if I move just a little bit, I'm going to fall apart. Once we're kind of in that coherent space, then you have so much more freedom to make decisions, to be bold, to live your best life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all rounds it up with the muscle testing and the being in truth and being strong, that idea of coherency, even in these different roles that we take, that we have this energetic signature that's true, and to apply that to all these different areas of our lives, right? Yeah. So that we can be in truth and we can be strong physically, emotionally, and energetically. I think we need that. I think we need that message right now, because we're going to need all the strength that we have to go through this fire and to go through this initiation that we're in now as a global society. And I believe in us, and I believe in our ability to do that. And, I believe in our ability, for those of us who have had training already in this, I believe in our ability to magnetize and to emanate that calm state of coherency out like those energy balls, right? To emanate that out. For each person that can do that, we can invisibly spread that sense of strength, that sense of truth, that sense of coherency, that sense of wisdom and courage. We can send that out to everybody that we know, and even people we don't know, and that can start to change the tide. That's like the ocean changing from red to blue. Like, I just see that, the little bubbles start to awaken around us, right?
Yeah.
Just like anxiety, that anxiety and that stress is also invisibly spreading, right? The calm and the sense of courage and coherency is very strong and can spread as well. So let's spread a little bit of that love.
And it's good to remember, because you're right, you can spread whatever the energy that you're feeling, but the coherent energy is so much stronger. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget that, that energy of truth and coherence is so much stronger. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take every single person being in that energy to be the tipping point. It takes just enough strength in numbers to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I've heard the quote, like 1 in 10. Like, if 1 in 10 person can hold that vibration and spread that out, then it'll help to awaken the whole populace. So
it's like that metaphor of, if there's a dark room and you light one candle, the room is no longer dark. Mm-hmm. one candle in a dark room, all of a sudden that little tiny light has lit the whole room. Yeah, and I do believe that.
Hmm.
Thank you for lighting your candles so brightly, Riza.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridgette. I can see it all the way down there in Texas. We're like holding like top and bottom a little bit here. Yeah, thank you for lighting your candle with me today. I really appreciate it. I've gained so much from this conversation, and I have every faith that it will go out to the people that need to hear it and that it will light their candle too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Riza. Thank you so much.
Have a good day, and thank you for joining us, our lovely audience. We look forward to hearing how this conversation affected you. You can definitely write in the comments. You can go online and share with us there. And we hope that you join us next month for episode 19. Okay, we'll see you later. Bye.